الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
وأما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المتين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's a pleasure to be with you all again, to spend this little bit of time together, as our brother was saying. On the day of judgment, just as a little introduction, on the day of judgment, each and every moment of our lives will be accounted for. That means even those minutes that you spent sleeping, as an example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you, okay, so you spent this much time sleeping. Good. But what about the day that you stayed in bed all day and you didn't do anything and you slept for that whole day, masalan, you wasted time. These times and every moment of our life will be called to account, except for certain times in our life. And those times when we are engaged in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one of those times, and even coming and listening to a speech, listening to Quran being read, spending time with brothers, these are those times. One of the riwayat we have that says that one of these moments in our lives that won't be accounted for on Yawm al-Qiyamah is the time that we spread the sufre, the tablecloth that we spread on the floor to eat together. These are times that Allah won't call us to account for these moments of our lives. Because these are the times in which our Islam is strengthened, our faith is renewed, our strength is rejuvenated, and in spending time together like this, we are able to, inshallah, re-inspire and get inspiration for ourselves. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So last night we began discussing this verse that I had mentioned to you that you hear every time you complete your salat, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran, He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yasulluna ala nabi, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And we had said that this verse, it gives us an instruction to send salawat on Prophet. And we had said that salawat is one of those things, one of those ibadat, one of those dua that we can read that's always accepted. Anytime you say salawat, this is accepted and rewarded. Allah gives His reward for saying salawat also. And we had mentioned last night that one of the ways to have our duas accepted and to guarantee their acceptance, just because your dua is accepted doesn't mean that you'll get the fancy sports car that you made dua for. Sometimes Allah answers your dua, but not with that thing that you wanted because it was bad for you. He knows that if He gives you the sports car, you're going to kill yourself on the highway. So He says, no sports car for you. But you do need a car, so we'll answer the dua. But dua is accepted when you include this salawat in that dua. And especially when you include salawat in your dua at the beginning and at the end of your dua, because in the riwayat it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept that first dua and then that last dua and leave out the one in the middle. If He's going to accept dua, He's going to accept all of them, inshallah. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And we had mentioned that this salawat and the story behind the revelation of this verse and the way that Prophet expressed the meaning of this verse to his followers was really the topic of our discussion last night. Because when the companions of Prophet heard this verse, then they said, Ya Rasulullah, how do we send salawat on you? How should we do it? Prophet said, then you should say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Oh Allah, bless Muhammad and the family of Muhammad in the same way that you blessed Ibrahim and the family of Ibrahim. Surely you are the most praiseworthy and the most glorious. Now, of course, some of you might be wondering, well, if this is what we're supposed to say, if this is what the Prophet says for us to say, how come we say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad? What happens is we have left that other part concerning Hazrat Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim. We've made that mahdhuf, we've cut it. Not that there's anything wrong from that, but we've cut it from the entire saying. And this is not so bad at all. Don't think that we're doing something wrong. Don't start mixing up the flow that after the salat, when everybody recites the salat, then you're going to add on the Kama salayta ala Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. Everybody's going to be like, this guy's zealous. He's one of the real believers. Prophet has a hadith, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
where Prophet says, when you recite salawat for me, then don't make it batra, don't make it cut off, don't cut me off from those who are from me. And what he means is when you say salawat, say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And don't do like some do and just say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is unacceptable. Anybody who recites the salat and leaves out Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, then this is not salawat. Prophet clearly says, don't cut me off from those who belong to me and I belong to them, meaning his family. Send a loud salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
So we
Muhammad.
mentioned last night that if we want to understand what salawat means, if we want to get a good grasp on what it means when we say salawat, we have to understand what was the blessing that Allah gave to Ibrahim. Because in salawat we're saying, oh Allah bless Muhammad wa ali Muhammad with the same blessing that you blessed Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim. So what was the blessing that Ibrahim received? And in reading the Bible and comparing it to the Quran, and as we mentioned last night, that blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Hazrat Ibrahim wa ali Ibrahim was the blessing of family as well as the blessing of imamat. And these are the blessings that Hazrat Ibrahim received from Allah. And we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just as in Bible, just as in Quran, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this covenant with Hazrat Ibrahim, he has no children yet. At that age of 90 years old, 100 years old at that time, he still has no children. And part of this covenant is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will multiply him and his descendants exceedingly, to a great number. Allah's not saying, I'm going to multiply you times 2. I'm going to multiply you times 3. He's saying, I'm going to multiply you exceedingly, to an exceeding amount, to an amount that you can't imagine. Even in one spot in the Bible that we mentioned last night, Allah tells Ibrahim, come outside, look at the stars, and if you can count them, that's how many your descendants will be. So part of the blessing that's given to Hazrat Ibrahim, that's continued with Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
is the blessing of family and the blessing of iman. And we don't want to move any further with tonight's discussion until we make this absolutely clear. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to bless his friends, Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that if he chooses to bless them with the best thing that he can give them. Sometimes if we say, what would Allah give to us? Then we say, well, you know, man, if he gave me $5 million, Baba, you can't handle $5 million. The reason Allah hasn't given you $5 million yet is because you wouldn't know what to do with it. It might lead you astray. Many times we don't have the capacity for the barakat of Allah, and so that's why we don't get it. We got a 1-gallon container, but we want 5 gallons of barakat. And It doesn't work like this. We have to increase our capacity to a certain extent to receive barakat. But the barakat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to these prophets, these friends of His, these beloved ones of His, such a great blessing is family. And it's the same blessing that He's given to each and every one of us. And we should really take that into account and realize that we have been blessed also with that same blessing as well. Salawat. Family is such an important fundamental in Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted the protection and interpretation of His religion to a family. Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. He could have left Quran in anyone's protection. He could have left Quran in no one's protection. He could have left this religion and said, hey guys, you figure it out. Which is what some Muslims want us to believe. Some people want us to believe that after Prophet died, then we didn't know what to do and we had to do something, so we did the best we could. And this isn't the case at all. Islam isn't like this. It provides answers and solutions to problems. This isn't our religion, a religion that's haphazard and just put together. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after you, inshallah, pay attention to this discussion tonight, you'll begin to understand more how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Prophet with family and included that family in every aspect of the building of this religion. We mentioned Hadith al-Thaqalain last night. The Prophet says, I'm leaving behind me two weighty things, the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. He's saying that these two will be together until the Day of Judgment. They will never separate from each other. So, the protection of Islam is in the hands of a family. At the event of Mubahala, we all know the story of Mubahala when we celebrate Eid al-Mubahala. It wasn't that long ago that we celebrated Eid al-Mubahala. I'm sure all of you know the story of Eid al-Mubahala. There's no reason to go over it again. But just in case some of the younger members might get these things confused, the Christians of Najran, if you look at a map of the Hijaz, of what they call Saudi Arabia, way down in the corner near Yemen, the border with Yemen and the Red Sea, is a little area called Najran. This area had been settled by Christians. The people there had accepted Christianity. And when news came to them of a prophet in Mecca, they decided to send a delegation to investigate this issue. Which really is a big deal, because today if Sabah writes an invitation to Islam to the church just on the corner here, you think they'll send a delegation over to check you out? I wouldn't hold my breath. But in those days, the Christians and all of the religions of that time, the Christians and the Jews in the Hijaz were expecting a prophet. There are books that foretold of the coming of a prophet to this area. So the Christians of Najran assembled a group and sent them to investigate the matter. They had a debate with Prophet. And you know, we've been having this debate for centuries now. We say Allah is one, that Jesus is not His son, and how could Jesus be His son? Allah owes back child support. How is it His son? You mean if we take a DNA test of this guy here, we'll find Allah's DNA in him? Then we should go to paternity and child support. No, He's not the son of Allah. And we've been having this debate with them for hundreds of years. It was the same thing in Prophet's time. These guys couldn't get it. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not like Nuruddin comes and sits down and just talks to you for a half hour, 45 minutes. This is Prophet bringing the logic of Quran and the revelation of Allah and explaining the revelation of Allah. And these guys still didn't want to hear it. Finally, Quran comes and says, oh, wait. With those people who debate with you, then do mubahala with them. You know what mubahala? Mubahala, it's from that Arabic verb form, mufa'ala, which means that two parties are engaged in something. Like a musahaba is a discussion. A mubahatha is a study session. A mubahala is when two groups of people get together and call down the curse of Allah on the one who's lying. So, Quran makes this challenge. Those who don't want to submit, those who don't want to hear any reason, we call them and say, bring your sons and we'll bring our sons. Bring your women, we'll bring our women. Bring yourselves and we'll bring ourselves, and we'll call for the curse of Allah on the liars. Now we all know how the story ends. When the Christians of Najran set their eyes on the faces and the personages of the Ahlul Bayt, faith is so evident in their face, it's not like these faces that we have today. Those faces were glowing with Iman. The Christians could see faith and belief and taqwa harmonious in the construction of these people, could see it in their faces. So they backed out. They're like, whoa, no way, we're not going to do mubahala with these guys. If we do mubahala, in fact, the head of the Christians turns to his companions and he says, look, if he had come with anybody else except his family, we would have done the mubahala. But because he came with his family and this family too, there's no way we can do the mubahala. We'll lose. And they backed out, they accepted the jizya, and they submitted to the rule of the Islamic State. But even a family, in this case, the family was the example of Islam. And this is what we have to see, that Quran, Islam has been entrusted to a family to protect. And when you need an example, the family is the example. And at Karbala, it's a family that saves Islam. At Karbala, it's a family that protects Islam and delivers it from becoming anything like Christianity or Judaism today. A nominal religion. A religion that people wear on their cuffs. And this is why we gather every year with these commemorations and these majalis, because we don't want to forget our core beliefs and our core values. It's not just that we come here and beat our chest for a little while and cry and then go home. This is only part of it, and even a very small part of it. If you're not coming and learning from the ulama that you have, and especially in a center like this where you're having like what, 3-4 simultaneous speeches? So many ulama. If you come here and all you learn is how to beat your chest and shed a few tears, then you've lost. There's a message at Karbala. There's a message on the day of Ashura that we should take, imbibe into ourselves, make one with ourselves, and live it, inshallah. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So we see that at every step, and over tomorrow night and the night after, we'll be showing you more and more this family at the forefront of the development of Islam. And it's good that the majority of our audience are young people, many of them not married yet, but certainly some of you thinking about it and planning for it. And this is the audience that should be also very attentive on these lessons. You know, in America, we're suffering from a 57% of all first-time marriages end in divorce. 67% of all second-time marriages, and 77% of all third-time marriages end in divorce. And it's a very scary scenario, and we have sometimes the idea that we should look at this as someone else's problem. But we live in this society, we're part of this society, and we're susceptible and vulnerable to the same diseases that they're vulnerable to. And so we should take it very seriously when we discuss this issue of family, and we should take it to heart when we discuss that important role of the family in Islam. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So this evening I recited for you Surah Al-Kawthar in the khutbah. And Surah Al-Kawthar is the perfect way to continue our discussion from last night. To understand Surah Al-Kawthar though, to understand the meaning of Surah Al-Kawthar and how it links up with what we discussed last night, maybe we should understand a little bit of background. You know, many, if not all, of the verses of Quran have a story behind them as to why they were revealed, the circumstances under which these verses of Quran were revealed. And many times there's a story behind the revelation of that verse of Quran or that chapter of Quran. Surah Al-Kawthar is one of those chapters that has a very heart-touching, heart-rending story behind it. You know, Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he had a few sons that were born, yet died in infancy. That while they were still babies, they passed away. One of these children was one of his sons by the name of Hazrat Ibrahim. Hazrat Ibrahim lived long enough after his birth for Prophet to hold this boy, to get very emotionally attached to this son of his. And if I remember correctly, he may have lived even more than a year and closer to 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So that within this time, Prophet became very close to this baby. Unfortunately though, very early in the baby's life, Hazrat Ibrahim passed away. And this hurt Prophet very much. In his dua, he used to lament to Allah. Prophet wasn't one like us, you know, when we get any kind of problem, we go and we tell everybody our business. Be like, oh man, you know, I owe back taxes, and you know, the IRS is auditing me, and you know, all our bad problems, we're going to tell everybody, like they can help us. When you complain, you should complain only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Prophet was like this. He complained of his pain in his heart of losing his son to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's difficult for any parent to lose a son. But understand that the Arabs of Mecca at that time, they valued the boys, as we've heard before, more than they valued girl children, more than they valued daughters. They were known for burying daughters alive. So when the son of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed away, these mushrikeen of Mecca, they used this opportunity to begin teasing Prophet and making fun of him. They used this as an opportunity to try to rub salt in his wound and make him feel even worse than he was already feeling. So they used to call him Abtar. Abtar is the word they use in Arabic for an animal whose tail is cut off. Like, you know, like how we do with Doberman pinchers in the country. They'll cut the tail off and just has a little ball at the end. Or like poodles. Any animal whose tail is cut off, they call him Abtar. But in addition to that, it's also a way of teasing someone who has no male descendants to succeed them and to inherit from them and to lead and take care of their family. So they would call Prophet, Na'udhu Billah. They would call our beloved Prophet, Abtar. And they would call him that to his face. And every time they said it, they meant to hurt him. They would say it with a jeer, with a snicker on their face, as if to say, you see, your son has died, and now you're Abtar. They used to tease him about this. And Prophet used to take it to heart so much, he used to complain to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about this. Not just the loss of his son, but the way that these people in this town were treating him now. The names that they were calling him. And then out of this lamentation of Prophet and complaining to Allah of Prophet of the treatment of these mushrikeen comes this chapter of Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Inna a'taynaka al-Kawthar, that surely we have given you Kawthar. So now, what is this that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given? What is this Kawthar? All of us, we know that Kawthar is a pond or a pool in paradise, right? It's a pond or a pool in paradise that we will all be gathered around. The followers of Prophet will gather there before we go into the paradise. But is that all it is? Kawthar, as you can probably tell from the letters, is from the same root word in Arabic as kathir. Kithrat, meaning a lot of something. Meaning X amount of something. When we put it on this construction though of Kawthar, it means more than just a lot of something. It means a whole a lot of something, a great abundance of something, a superabundance of something. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Prophet, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, that surely we have given you kawthar, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that I've given you an exceeding amount. But an amount of what? To understand that, understand the other meaning of Kawthar. Kawthar is also one of the names of Hazrat Zahra alayhi salam. That Allah is saying that, look, I've given you a superabundance. I've given you a whole lot in the person of this Zahra. That it's through this Zahra that the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be fulfilled. Last night we mentioned that covenant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made with Hazrat Ibrahim, that he would keep imamat in the generations of Hazrat Ibrahim, and that he would bless the generations of Hazrat Ibrahim with a great number of descendants. It's through Hazrat Zahra that this promise made to Hazrat Ibrahim is realized in our present time. Salawat. It's this promise to Hazrat Zahra, this promise to Prophet by Allah, that he's going to give you Kawthar, that it's through Hazrat Zahra that imamat is established in Ahlul Bayt, and it's through Hazrat Zahra that this great number of descendants that were promised to Prophet and promised to Hazrat Ibrahim is realized in the life of Prophet and realized in the development of Islam. Hazrat Zahra is that Kawthar, that superabundance, that exceeding multitude of descendants that was given to Prophet. And she is the house of imamat that was given to Prophet. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So this Kawthar, Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar, it doesn't just mean a pool or a pond in paradise, but it's the fulfillment of that promise that Allah made to Hazrat Ibrahim, that your descendants will be so many, and that imamat will stay in your generations and in your family for all times. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْهَرْ. So then praise and glorify your Lord and make sacrifice. This is the second verse of that chapter of Quran. And understand that with every barakat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, and we'll discuss this a little bit more in a moment, we are expected to glorify Him, to show gratefulness for this barakat, but also there may be some sacrifice necessary on our part to receive that barakat. And this is why this verse is so very important. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْهَرْ. So then glorify your Lord, magnify your Lord, pray to your Lord, and be prepared to make sacrifice. إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. That surely it's your enemy who's cut off. It's your enemy who is abtar. And what Allah is saying is, look, we will establish your family. We will establish imamat in your generations. But your enemy will be wiped out, he will be cut off, and he will be forgotten. So today when we look around and we see that we just said last night too, and it's a fact, it's not Nuruddin making up stories for you. The largest single family on the face of the earth is the family of Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And this is only through that barakat, only through that Kawthar that is given to Hazrat Rasulullah. And this large family of Hazrat Rasulullah, then look at his enemies. Who today claims to be the descendant of Abu Sufyan? Who claims to be the descendant of Yazid or Muawiyah? Nobody. Even if they have a family tree that says that they're descended from that, they won't come out and say it. It's not something to be proud of. These families of these enemies have been wiped out and forgotten. And only the family of Prophet, only that barakat through Hazrat Kawthar, through Hazrat Zahra, has remained and remains. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, it's important for us while we're talking about this Kawthar, while we're talking about this blessing that was delivered to Prophet, given to Prophet through Hazrat Zahra, this fulfillment of this promise of Allah. It's important that we understand a little bit more about barakat and hujjat. There's a difference between barakat and hujjat, and the best way to explain it to you, like they say in the street, I can show you better than I can tell you. Barakat is that thing that, for instance, you need or you desire from Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His mercy may grant you that thing. As an example, you may need a job, and you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, oh Allah, help me to find a job. Now Allah knows what you need, and He wants to fulfill your desire, so He makes finding a job easy for you. This is a barakat from Him. Now, if we're grateful for that barakat, if we get a blessing from Allah, Allah blesses us with something like a good family. If Allah blesses you with a good family, a good mother and a good father who work hard to take care of you and provide for you and to provide for your education and your guidance, but then you're not grateful for that barakat, and you're not expecting to make any sacrifice for that barakat, then this barakat can get changed and transformed into a hujjat, into a proof, and a proof against us. You see, for every barakat we get from Allah, we're expected to be grateful for that barakat. And in return for that barakat, to show gratefulness for that barakat, and to use it, and to nurture it and take care of whatever barakat that may be. But when we are ungrateful for that barakat, when we disregard that barakat, that blessing, when we don't pay attention and we're not attentive to that blessing, then this barakat becomes a hujjat. And to make it clear, to make you understand, then let's use the example of family again. Allah has blessed us with good parents. This is a blessing. This is a barakat that Allah has given us. If we're ungrateful for that blessing, if we show ingratitude for that blessing, then on the day of judgment, that blessing is a hujjat against you. On the day of judgment, when you're raised up, the parents will complain against the children. So now the barakat that you received that was there, that was good for you, it's now turned into a proof against you. To make it even more clear, let's use the example of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
You know, imamat is a barakat. To have an imam is a barakat. What do you think? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is keeping Imam Mahdi, may Allah hasten his reappearance, alive and well and safe for 1200 years for no reason? It's just what, an extended vacation? Huh? No, Imam has a job to do. He's a barakat. And he's a barakat for each and every one of us. And some of us, we forget that he's here, alive, and on the job. He's not somewhere on the Green Island. You know, they have those stories that they say that the Imam lives on a Green Island. He's not on the Green Island with his feet up, drinking lemonade, a little umbrella in the glass. No, he's at work. As an Imam, he has a service to provide, and a job to fulfill, and a duty to fulfill, and he's not